Shalom and welcome to Secrets Revealed, the Holy Bible. Today we're looking at Exodus chapter 20. And for those who are observing the Day of Atonement today, I'd like to wish you an easy fast. So Exodus chapter 20. This chapter is its own video. You're going to notice on the top there is a magnifying glass to enable easier viewing, easier watching for the purposes of this video, or this series, which is to look at the scriptures, the Holy Scriptures, line by line, precept by precept. We're looking at it, and we want to make sure that you can see it easily, especially when you're watching this, on a full screen or even in a small screen like a phone. So this chapter is its own video. We're in for a doozy because any differences we will spot here will potentially be automatically, it's going to be major. For this is not only a memory chapter or a section, this is pretty much the heart of the Torah. This is one of the most sections in all of Scripture, Exodus 20. There are 26 verses. Beginning in verse 1, we see here, and Yah spoke all these words, or the tetragrammaton, Yod He Vav He, as opposed to the Masoretic, which says an Elohim. So we can see it's using his proper name rather than just a generic term in verse 1. So that's right off the bat, we have a big difference. Verse 3, beside, you shall have no other Elohims beside me. Versus, you shall have no other Elohim before me. Now, this doesn't mean that you can have other Elohim, but not beside him, location-wise. No, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean location-wise. It means that you can have no Elohim except him only. So before could possibly be interpreted as, location-wise in front of his face, but it just means you shall have no other Elohim beside me, period. There's no other Elohim beside me. I'm the only one. Whereas here, it can be taken potentially as, hey, I can have other Elohim, but just not in front of his face. There's no room for compromise in the Septuagint. Verse 4, we see here, idol versus graven image. Excuse me. You shall not make to yourself an idol. An idol. Masoretic, you shall not make to yourself any graven image. Likeness of anything. Now this is a difficult scripture for many. Does this mean no art? We're not to own any art. And if so, if we're allowed to have art, is it all art or is it only depictions? Is this a breaking of a commandment, of this commandment, if we own art or need depictions of animate, still life, such as plants or animals or landscapes? Is that a breaking of this commandment? But it says here, you shall have no idol or likeness of anything, whatever things are in the heaven above, whatever in the earth beneath, whatever are in the water is under the earth. This seems to imply living things. But we're going to look at that more, I think, as we go explore the scriptures. We'll see that Yah does make exceptions for this. And I want to stress here, idol, not just graven image, but an idol, something that is worshipped and you bow down to. Verse 7. Now, we're looking at the differences, so I won't be going to every line here. But you can see in verse 5, it does say, when you bow down and serve them. That is another addition. We're not going to say addition, but it is a condition in which What is an idol? It's something you bow down to, something you serve. Verse 7 says, acquit. You shall not take the name of Yah, your Elohim, in vain, for Yah, your Elohim, will not acquit him that takes his name in vain. Verses, hold him guiltless. Notice it doesn't say speak his name in vain. It says take his name. So you have his name, meaning in ancient times, you hold his reputation on you, and you are associated with him, and he is associated with you. Now, I spoke to someone in the faith recently, and he told me that it doesn't exempt us from that we can use his name and just say, his name as a swear word, or, even Jesus Christ as a swear word. Doesn't mean we can do that. It means that we don't do either. We don't say his name, just like it's something common. But more importantly, in my understanding of this, is the greater application is that when we hold his name, associate ourselves with him, and his reputation are linked, we shouldn't do anything, say anything that, especially publicly, where we make his name an embarrassment and a shame, and we turn his name into nothing. So that's verse 7. Verse 10. So everything is mostly, except for what I've pointed out, there are differences, but let's look at number 10, verse 10. Your ox or ass, it says, on the seventh day, the Sabbath of Yah your Elohim, on it you shall do no work, you, nor your son or your daughter, your servant, or your maidservant, so that means a male servant or a female servant, your ox or your ass, or any cattle of yours. So notice that ox or ass is omitted. Sojourns with you, the stranger that sojourns with you versus that is in your gates, that's different too, because someone living with you obviously is in your household, versus someone living in your gates. That could be your whole city. That could be a larger area, or your property or your house. But when we look at the word gates in verse 10, that sojourns with you, within your gates can cover a wider area. So those are some differences there. Verse 11, the seventh day versus the Sabbath day. Notice that difference. It's termed differently. Although the Sabbath says Jehovah or Yah blessed the seventh day and hallowed it, versus Yah blessed the rest day. Sabbath means rest. Blessed the rest day and hallowed it. So we see here that it is stressed. It is the seventh day twice in the Septuagint. And it is a rest day and hallowed it. But it does say in verse 10, the seventh day is the Sabbath of Yah, your Elohim, the Shabbat. So just in case there's any misinterpreting of this verse, it's not just the seventh day and it's called the seventh day. It is indeed the Sabbath. So that's verse 11. Verse 12, honor your father and your mother that it may be well with you. This is omitted from the Masoretic. It doesn't say that. It just says that your days may be long. But it does say that in the Septuagint too. But notice that it is omitted. It may be well with you is not included there in this specific verse in the Masoretic text. That's a big omission. The good land, it says here, and that you may live long on the good land. It's not just a regular land, it's a good land. versus land. So good has been omitted. So notice a good land is something that people would want to live on. It is a place where the harvest is plenty. It is an ideal location to live and raise your family versus just a land. No, God gives you the best when He gives. He gives you a good land, a fruitful land. Verse 13, kill. This isn't a difference, but just an understanding here. Kill is better translated as premeditated murder. As we see in many other verses throughout the Torah, throughout the Tanakh, that these verses support executing and the killing of those who have been proven guilty of breaking a specific command. For example, if you break the Sabbath, you will be stoned to death. And there are instances such as the account of Phinehas killing the man and the woman. So if this word is true, just regular kill, then those who keep the command of stoning to death those who break specific commandments, such as the Sabbath and others, would be guilty. But no, the better understanding, the better translation is, you shall not commit murder, specifically premeditated murder, because if you just commit murder, such as murder in self-defense, you aren't guilty of this, breaking this command. It is premeditated murder, where you lie in wait, you've thought about it, you're planning this person's murder, usually out of hate, out of jealousy, out of carnal intentions, malicious intentions, not a situation where your back is against the wall and you have to make a choice. Do I defend this person's life, such as a widow, a poor person, a orphan, someone who's a stranger and is only visiting, passing through, and they have no social support system? Do I defend their life? And when you defend their life, you're not guilty of this. You are acting on their best interest. You're putting your life, in fact, you're laying down your life to defend someone else's. You're sacrificing your life. So that would not be a breach of this command in my understanding. If you disagree, please comment, let me know. But this is the understanding I've been given regarding this command. You shall not kill, better translated, you shall not murder, specifically premeditated murder. Verse 17, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife. Notice wife is listed here first in the Septuagint, and it is mentioned second in the Masoretic text, which raises a flag for me. Let's notice here that the word field is omitted, nor is field. It's not there in the Masoretic. Neither is the word cattle. That's omitted as well. So one could be very legalistic and say, hey, I can covet not only your field, but your cattle, because that's not included in the Masoretic text. But no, that would be an error. But it does say at the end, nor whatever belongs to your neighbor in both, anything. So you can't really use that excuse because both translations say otherwise. But notice wife is listed first in the Septuagint, which is something that people would covet more often than someone's house, to be honest. Verse 18, thundering. And all the people, if I could just scroll up a little bit, it's a little bit of a lag. I have many things open. Okay. All the people perceived the thunderings and the flashes and the voice of the trumpet. So voice versus noise. And the mountain smoking, and the people feared and stood afar off. So notice that in here, actually, I didn't note it myself, but the people saw it, they were moved. So feared versus removed. So the thundering here that we read of in both translations is possibly the voices alluded to back in last chapter, Exodus 19, verse 16. Verse 19, we will hear, was added. It doesn't say that in the Septuagint. Speak you to us, Moses, and let not God speak to us, lest we die. It doesn't say speak to us and we will hear. They didn't say that. Be of good courage, Moses says, versus fear not. Be of good courage is an old way to say, be a man, act like men. Notice that one is positive and one is negative. His fear may be among you. Elohim has come to you to try you, that his fear may be among you. Meaning the love of his commandments, the love of him, and hating evil. That's what his fear is. That's the better understanding of it. Versus fear before your faces. That his fear may be before your faces. So you can just picture their faces being afraid. Big eyes, jaws dropped. So you can see a different tone in the Septuagint. Thick darkness. The word thick was added in verse 21. Verse 22, the house of Jacob. You shall say to the house of Jacob, and you shall report it to the children of Israel. House of Jacob was omitted. Now, understand that Jacob and Israel are synonymous. However, house of is not synonymous with children. Verse 23, you shall not make to yourselves, versus you shall not make with me. So how would you make with him, Elohim? That's not something Elohim would want. So you're not making it with him. No, you're making it to yourselves. That's something that's selfish. You're not doing it as a way to honor him. For example, they made the golden calf or the golden bull, but in that instance, I really do feel that was in tribute to Yah. But later down the line, they would worship other Elohim, completely different Elohim, not the same Elohim at all. And to gods of gold, you shall not make to yourselves. Okay, so to yourselves is omitted in the Masoretic. Verse 24, calves versus oxen. You see here, right there, you shall make to me an altar of earth, okay, and your sheep and your calves in every place, versus oxen in the Masoretic. Verse 25, defiled. They are defiled, versus you have polluted it. Very similar meanings anyhow. Verse 26, you shall not go up to my altar by steps, that you may not uncover your nakedness upon it. Versus that your nakedness be not discovered thereon. Now, uncover your nakedness in this context seems to refer to the lifting up of legs. Biblical fashion was in robes. So if you're walking up steps, you would either have to gird up your loins or because you are standing on elevated ground, those below you could possibly see up your robe. So that's all for this chapter. I wanted to stress that this is a separate video from other videos. This will be its own thing, so that's why I've done it this way. Here's the image that I will use for this video, and as you can see, it is the Ten Commandments, but in the proto-Canaanite Hebrew that was mostly pictographs. I found this very interesting because people depict the two tablets as written in modern Hebrew, when we know, if you really do your research, Moses didn't even know modern Hebrew, or even the one before that, the Hebrew that existed at that time. I think it was Phoenician Hebrew, but anyhow, did not know that either. The Hebrew that existed during his time, and some speculate that it was Moses himself that developed this, and others say perhaps Daniel, but it was most likely in this format, in this font, you could say, it existed in this form during his time. So it probably looked closer to this. So that's all I have to present for this chapter, Exodus 20. I thank you very much for your time. May our Father bless you, may Yah bless you, and make your way prosperous. For Secrets Revealed, this is Jack Knight signing off. Until next time, thank you again, and Shalom.